Welcome to Princeton Television. Welcome to Breezin with Bierman. The great Adam Bierman is off tonight, but I am Loren Lepre, the co-host, and I have a very special guest this week. My guest this time around is Patrick Rodgers from Dancing Ferret, from Mr. Dracula's Ball himself, seen on the Colbert Report, seen on CNN with his war with Wells Fargo's, which he has won. We will cover all this tonight, but Patrick, thank you for being a guest tonight.
My pleasure.
Welcome to Princeton TV.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start off with Dracula's Ball.
All right.
You have been running that for a good 20 years. You got the big anniversary show coming up. You are definitely a man of goth, as everyone clearly could tell. Let's give us a quick brief history before you get into that. What drew you to that scene? And then we'll get into Dracula's Ball. So why did taste for it, if I could use those words?
Well, it's hard to point to anything in particular. It's just always through childhood I felt kind of drawn to darker side of things. I was always interested in the villain story. Like, what was his deal? Why was he so evil? What drove him to do the things that he did? And of course, I was drawn to vampires and other things that went bump in the night. And once I moved to America, I'm originally from the Bahamas in the Caribbean, which you can tell from my tan and my accent.
Yeah.
So anyway, I moved to the States and I discovered the goth scene and immediately felt like I was at home there. I liked the aesthetic, I liked the music, I liked the people. And eventually I became professionally involved. I started booking bands and the rest is a 23-year history from there.
So the scene was already going on in the Philadelphia area, which where you largely work out of.
Yes.
When you got here.
Yeah, the scene was going on, but the problem that the scene was having from a music standpoint was that a lot of bands were skipping Philadelphia to play New York.
Which happens in almost every genre still these days.
Well, it's cyclical, and we've kind of circled back to the point now where it's happening again, which is very unfortunate. And I've talked to a number of other Philly promoters, including promoters from huge, multi-million-dollar promotion companies, and we all share that frustration that it seems to be back to the hey, let's just skip Philly thing. But that was happening at the time. And I felt if I actively pursued some of these bands and said, look, we are the fourth largest city in the country. Maybe it would be a good idea for you guys to come here and play to this audience. I started getting some bands in and people got excited about that. And we kind of built from there.
Wait, and so this was the late 90s when all this started for you in that department?
Yeah, 95 was the year that I started in, and the very first show that I did was not a goth show. I was just looking to, get in and do anything. And Guar had a side project at the time called X-Cops, and they all dressed up in these police uniforms, and they sang songs about cavity searches and violating people's civil rights and other things we can't talk about on a respectable show like this. But they had this album and they wanted to tour, and nobody in Philly wanted to do the show. And I said, well, it's Guar, so this is a chance for me to kind of make a name. And I did it at the Trocadero, and I took a big cash advance on my credit card, and I lost thousands of dollars doing the show.
Wow.
But it was a learning experience. I started working with a national band. I started in a real venue at the Trocadero, who today now, even still, I have a great business relationship with. So it was a way to kind of hit the ground running. And my next show after that was a goth show, and I made a few $100s. And I said, all right, maybe this could work. And it's, grown quite a bit and worked well.
So you eventually started your baby, the Dracula's Ball. Tell us the birth of that and how that got rolling.
That got started because I was frustrated with discovering bands that I thought were very talented, but that didn't have a lot of draw or a lot of name recognition. And I wanted to set up an event where the event had its own audience, and I could take a band that was good, but maybe not very well known, and put them on stage and have a large number of people in the room see them, and then build them through that process. So, and of course, we also booked big bands too, but the impetus for doing that event was to find a vehicle to promote smaller bands, where if I just said, hey, this band is playing, maybe 20 people would show up. But because it's Dracula's Ball, 300 people showed up, and then 500 people showed up, and then 1,000 people showed up. And, now we do fewer of the events. We only do maybe 2 or 3 of them a year. We used to do 4 of them a year. And we mostly do bigger bands now. But I'm always looking for the opportunity to kind of take somebody that would benefit from that exposure and put them on a bill with, a bigger band that's going to draw a lot of people. But the event itself has its own fan base. So we get a lot of people that don't know the bands. They just want to come to Dracula's ball.
Yeah, and that's why you're here now. I met him through these events in like the early 2000s, and I'm a person who always had a taste for all styles of music, and getting into another thing that you did Shampoo Wednesday nights. You had your own 80s and goth night going on.
Yeah, it was called Nocturne. It was actually the longest running club night in the United States of any kind, any genre. Yeah, 16 and a half years that ran for.
That was all you from start
It was
to
all
finish?
me, start to finish.
Yeah, as I remember, everybody knows my punk rock, hardcore roots. I remember being at the Electric Factory, which is next door to the club.
That's right.
And I left a Hatebreed show, and I walked by. You don't know this, so I know you don't remember this. I saw you outside, okay, with the bouncers, and there's this guy with fangs, and I'm like, I just moved up, like, I don't know what's going on over here, but I should just go over. So I went up. I'm like, excuse me, what's going on? You were all nice and upbeat. You're like, oh, it's 80s and goth going on up there. I'm like, first thing I was like, that works? That mixes? That works?
Oh, mix is great.
And it did. And I was just like, well, Wednesday night, it's 11:30. One show right to the next, and then I went in, and that was it. I was hooked ever since. So yeah, that went really well. Like, so yeah, you ran that 16 years. I didn't realize that was a full 16
Yeah,
years.
16 and a half years. Spin Magazine wrote an article, well, a blurb more on us at one point as one of the more interesting club events in the country. And they said it was one of the few places where you could hear Prince and Susie Sue on the same night. Which to me didn't, it was like, of course, why wouldn't you hear Prince and Susie Sue on the same night? But I guess to Spin, that seemed novel, so they gave us a little plug.
And it was always just amazing for anyone who was ever there that, like, you're in this venue, and it's like large, dark people dressed in goth, and then you go in this other room with all 80s, and it's all these happy kids. It was just like, and it worked. It was really, I never saw any problem with the crowds. It gelled amazing.
And I mean, the thing is, there was so much crossover between those crowds, and there were certain songs that, you'll remember the venue had 3 rooms, 3 dance floors, 3 DJs.
Yep.
And each of them kind of did something, their own thing, but there was kind of an overlap. And there were certain songs that you could hear in all 3 rooms on the same night. Definitely The Cure. I mean, Number One Crush by Garbage. That was something you would hear in all 3 of those rooms. Another song called Something on the Dance Floor, and I can't say the first name on television, but there were songs that you would hear in all 3 rooms because there was an overlap between all of those groups. And everybody got along, and it was a great atmosphere. It was definitely something I'm really proud of having, birthed and shepherded, and
it was a staple for me for many Wednesday nights for a very long time. I felt like I didn't feel right the rest of the week if I missed it at one point.
Well, and I mean, there were people who came to me, many people who came to me and said, my job schedule, I got it changed so that I can come in late on Thursday, and I have to stay late a different night, but I can come in at 11 or noon on a Thursday because after being out until 2 in the morning on Wednesday and maybe having 1 or 2 adult beverages, I can't be up at 9 in the morning. So, kids in college who changed their class schedules to make sure they didn't have any Thursday morning classes. It was very flattering.
Yeah,
very flattering.
For the record, I was up every day at 6 in the morning, regardless. I just ate it, but I just did it. But
you're an Iron Man.
That's right. So tell everybody. Anybody new that's watching from the Princeton area, you have your 20th anniversary show coming up. tell us all about that
Yeah,
one?
sure. So it's the 20th anniversary of the Dracula's Ball event, which is certainly one of the most popular events that I've produced in the years that I've been doing concert promotion and event production. And so we have two bands coming in from Europe. We have a band called Covenant, and we have a band called Front 242. And they're sort of one of the pioneers of industrial music. They were, definitely leading figures in electronic music, generally speaking. And they don't tour very often. So very excited to have them. Very excited to have both bands together. It's a killer double bill. And we have people coming in from, a lot of different states. I've sort of been able to see the list of where people have purchased tickets from, and it's people are flying in from the show. So there's actually a guy from the band's home country in Europe who happens to be in Philly on business at the time, and he said, "Oh my God, I bought tickets! I have to see the show. It's amazing!" So he's pretty happy. But we sold out about 6 weeks in advance, which is about what I expected for this. So it's a nice milestone. It's nice to be able to celebrate. It's fantastic that people have supported the event for so long and kept it viable, and kept that atmosphere. It's very friendly. It's very laid back. And the outfits are amazing.
Yes.
I mean, you're welcome in a t-shirt and jeans. You're welcome in whatever you're comfortable in, but some people have pretty elaborate costumes. Some people have really sexy nightclub attire. This is our 20th anniversary, so I'm telling people, hey, if you feel like breaking out an evening gown or a tux or something formal to celebrate the anniversary, feel free to do that. And if not, that's okay too. So we'll see what kind of clothes we see.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. And also, a lot of people don't know is this man took on Wells Fargo and took them down, saying we all live in a world where the banks are screwing us all over every day. This guy has a really unique story. This guy was on CNN, the Colbert Report. So for everybody at home that always feels hands tied, there's always a way to take them down. So explain your story, exactly how this happened.
Well, we don't have time for the full version, but the Reader's Digest version was that there was a dispute between Wells Fargo and I.
Okay.
And one of the important aspects of the dispute was that I never missed a mortgage payment, and they agreed that I had never missed a mortgage payment, always payment in full and on time. But they disputed another point with me, and they said we're going to foreclose on your house. And that's a pretty scary thing to hear from a bank.
It is, yeah.
And it's an odd thing to hear when you've never missed a payment. So I talked to a couple lawyers, and they said, well, when's the foreclosure? And I said, I don't know. They just keep sending me these threatening letters, like 2 or 3 every week. And all 3 of the lawyers I spoke to said, well, we can't really help you until you're in foreclosure. So what you should do is stop paying your mortgage, go into foreclosure, and then hire us, and we'll fix it for you. And, when a lawyer tells you to stop paying your mortgage, I said, this doesn't seem
good at all.
Right to me. Thank you very much for your time. And so I had to act as my own attorney when I sued them. And that was a very educational process. I had to spend a lot of hours doing a lot of research. But I sued them, and I won the suit, and they didn't pay what they were supposed to pay. And when that happens, you can go to the sheriff's office and you can have a sheriff's levy placed on the property owned by the person that you've sued who hasn't paid. So at the time, Wells Fargo had one office in Philadelphia, and I went to the sheriff's office, filled out the paperwork, and paid the fee. And so the sheriff's office went down there, and they put up a big notice on the front door of the bank that says, contents under sheriff's levy, do not remove anything from the premises, and there's going to be a sheriff's sale on this date. And they were going to sell everything in the office, the fax machines, the furniture, the water cooler, the computers. It was all going to be sold at auction to pay what they owed me. And so I took a copy of that notice and wrote a press release and sent it out to all of these different publications, online, print, everything. And I just titled the headline, "Man Forecloses on Bank." And people went nuts. The media went nuts. It was a big story. The Philadelphia Inquirer picked it up. And it went viral from there, and it was the top story on Huffington Post for a few days in a row. I did radio interviews as far away as Canada, did CNN, did Fox News, and then eventually it all culminated in me doing the Colbert Report, which was incredibly fun. Really, really fun thing to do. Well, I mean, we shot about 10 hours of footage, and it wound up being maybe a 5 or 6 minute segment. But they got Dan Rather to be in my segment, which I was super excited about because I'm a big Dan Rather fan. And Don Lemon from CNN was in it, and of course Steven was in it. And it was just really funny. And they approached me because initially I had turned them down. I said, I don't really want to be poked fun at, and the case is over. I settled. I received, a settlement that I cannot disclose due to, the non-disclosure agreement, but I don't really need any more publicity. And they said, no, we don't want to make fun of you. We want you in on the joke. We want you to be part of the comedy. We want to work with you. And it sounded like a lot of fun, and I liked the show, and I liked the idea of doing that. And it was really funny. It was really, really funny. Steven was hilarious. I don't pat myself on the back too much, but my bits were pretty funny too. I have a good sense of comedic timing. And anyway, if you Google my name, which is Patrick Rodgers, and the words difference maker, because that was the name of his segment on the Colbert Report, was the difference makers. He had me on as a difference maker, but you'll find a video clip of it online, and it's pretty funny.
Awesome. I would definitely check that out. And what would you say to the audience for if they fall into any sort of situation with the bank, them being bullied? What would you say the first the process they should start to follow? I mean, sure, it could be all different depending on the situation.
It's really different from situation to situation, and I mean, bank is also, that's a very broad possible set of circumstances. For me, it was just a mortgage issue. So mortgage law was what I learned about. But there's a federal law called RESPA. That's the initials for it, RESPA. And if you look up the RESPA code, there's a lot in there about what the bank has to do. And if you send them a certain type of letter, they have to, by law, respond to you within a certain amount of time and say, look, we got your letter. And then they have a little more time to send you a response that says, we read your letter, and here's our answers to your questions. And if they don't do those things, you can sue them. And other people have done that. Consumer Reports actually asked me to write an article about what I did and how other people could do it. So it's on their website called The Consumerist. And if you Google that, it's not hard to find. And that's really the best advice I could give in general without knowing, And also, time for me to give the disclaimer, I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. Don't sue me if something goes wrong. Thank you.
But do you just think for a lot of people out there, do you think it's just more of intimidation because it's like, oh, I'm trying to take on a large bank? You think it's this?
Well, you're taking on a Fortune 500 company, and they have an army of expensive lawyers in suits. But I was my own lawyer for all of that. I did all my own legal research. I filed all my own court documents. And I won, and, I didn't go to law school or anything. So if I can do it, you can do it too. Just, you have to be prepared to do the research. You have to be willing to put the time in.
Yeah. And you don't have to pay the lawyer fees if you don't have to.
Well, see, this is the other thing too, is that, if you're your own attorney, if you're acting on your own, you're paying yourself zero. But the bank has to pay these lawyers, and everything that they have to do costs the bank money. And you can kind of bleed them out a little bit that way. You can make them have to pay their lawyers a whole bunch, to the point where they may be willing to just say, hey, all right, so far we've spent $7,000 fighting you. What's it going to take for us to have you go away and leave us alone?
And they're probably trying to always reverse that on the small person, right? Because they realize they don't have the money to pay a lawyer a lot of times.
Well, and that's it too, is if you do get a lawyer, then they'll flip the script and they'll do that to you. They'll file a bunch of motions and a bunch of things that need to be read and responded to, because they know you're hemorrhaging money at $200-300 an hour with your lawyer. So and not everybody is cut out to be their own lawyer, and that's not always the best move. You know, sometimes you need a lawyer, especially if something's particularly complicated. But you know, it is possible to do it on your own.
That's great. It's always love the little guy getting the payback.
Yeah, well, it's the classic, you know, man bites dog story, and that was part of the reason that it really went viral in the way that it did.
Freaking amazing story.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, and you also run your own record label.
I do. The label's a catalog label now, which means that we don't put anything new out, but we do keep our existing releases in print. And we had that going for a number of years. That was very, very labor intensive, but it really provided me with some great opportunities in my life. A lot of the big music festivals that the bands I work with could play at are over in Europe. So I got to tour Europe a couple of times. I actually took the first goth band ever to China. So China's first foreign goth band was a band on my record label that I took over, and we played at this festival there called the MIDI Festival.
How did they respond to China?
Beatles landing at JFK.
Wow.
Kind of crazy.
Really?
Yeah. It was, I mean, we couldn't go 2 feet without people asking to have their picture taken. They were super enthusiastic for the performance on stage. It was really an incredibly positive response. I mean, we had no idea what to expect. So, you know, maybe some polite applause, maybe indifference, maybe a great response, and it was beyond a great response.
That's great.
So
with the way the music industry is today, I mean, constantly pressing CDs, all that stuff's kind of, you know, falling a little on the hard you're just like holding them as catalogs now, more or less?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that maybe we printed too many of at the time that we still have that we're trying to get rid of. But then there are things that just still have a high demand. There's a band that I work with from Germany. They're called Corvus Corax, and it's a bunch of 6'6", manly German guys, and they play medieval music. And they have about 500 pounds of instruments that go with them for just one of their normal gigs. A lot of percussion, some huge drums. They sing in Latin, and it's quite a performance. They've been called the Rolling Stones of medieval music. And they actually got so big in Germany that they branched off a couple of side projects. And the one side project of theirs that's most famous is called Cantus Buranus, and what they do is they play the Carmina Burana with a full 100+ piece orchestra, but they play with their medieval instruments, and everything is played in a historically authentic style. And there's a great video you can find of them online. They're playing at this big outdoor amphitheater, and they actually go to the stage in a horse-drawn chariot. The chariot pulls right up to the stage, and they get on the stage with their bagpipes and their huge drums and all their other medieval instruments, and this huge orchestra is there, and it's amazing. So, I mean, their stuff, we have a greatest hits album of theirs, and that's, years and years later, still in demand, so we keep that in print. So there's a couple other things that we'll always repress as long as there's demand for it.
Gotcha. And then, we got your Dracula's Ball event going on here.
Yeah.
So, you've been doing this 20 years, and you're always, particularly the last few years, you've been running the truck. Do you constantly just running around, making sure everything's okay? Because I know what it's like when I'm running a film fest. You got to serve many masters, but I mean, do you get moments where you sit there and look around and be like, wow, I'm responsible for all this? Wow,
It's definitely a chicken with your head cut off kind of situation. There's a lot of running around to do. There's, you're serving the audience, but you're also serving the musicians, and you have to make sure that everybody in that equation is happy. And of course, you're serving the venue too.
Yep.
Mostly they take care of that end on their own, but occasionally there's something that comes up, like, maybe you see somebody doing something that they really shouldn't be doing, and then you've got to alert the venue, like, hey, this thing is happening, and that person needs to be escorted out because you don't want that trouble and I don't want that trouble.
Right.
But that's rare. I mean,
Yeah.
my crowd is very well behaved. But yeah, you know, every once in a while I do get to stop and take a breath and take that moment and sort of look around. And I mean, for me, people ask if I have fun at the events. And I don't enjoy them in the same way that the audience enjoys them.
Yeah.
But what I get is I get an immense sense of personal and professional satisfaction when the band goes on and the first song starts and the people are screaming and they're going crazy and that wave just kind of washes over me. That's, you know, that's my
Makes
reward.
it all worth it.
And then at the end of the night, when the band says, "You treated us really well, we made a lot of money," and the venue says, "Great show, we made a lot of money," and the customers, you know, I'm starting to see things on Facebook like, "This show is great. We drove in from Pittsburgh and we had so much fun. This was awesome."
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's my enjoyment. That's my pleasure when all of that stuff comes together.
That's fantastic. Yeah, yeah. So, and you made like they pretty much all those bands, that crowd's been your family, probably pretty much for the last 20 years, 25 years, right?
It has, and you know, one of the things that's you know, that's sad is that over that amount of time, you know, you lose some people, and you know, in the music business, you don't lose too many people who are in their 80s and they're surrounded by family and they die of natural causes in their bed at home. You know, you lose people to auto accidents, to cancer, to drug overdoses, to suicide, and things like that. And so that's, you know, something that's on my mind leading into this 20-year anniversary. There's a little part of my brain thinking about, you know, people that aren't there anymore, and that's kind of tough. But you know, the positive side of it is exactly what you said. There's people. I mean, there are people that are bringing their kids to my event now who met at my event. You know, they met, they fell in love, they got married, they had kids, and now they're bringing their kids to this party.
I hope they had you in the wedding at least, right?
Well, I've been to one or two of those. But yeah, I mean, you know, there are relationships that have you know, friendships that have lasted a really long time as a result of that, and there are people that, you know, when I open the doors at 9 o'clock and say, "Hey, come on in, everybody," you know, there are people that I just know I'm going to see, and I look forward to seeing them, and I'm excited to see that loyal fan base, that, you know, that core family crowd, and you know, I'm happy to see new faces too.
Yeah.
So it's a nice mix of that.
So do you have like anything new you might be trying to do in the work, like an expansion of, you know, outside of?
Yeah, there's a couple of ideas that kind of bounce around in my head, and you know, you always have to measure how good this sounds in my own head versus how realistic is it that people are going to be into something like that. You know, sometimes I hit the mark and occasionally I miss it. A couple of years ago, I did an event where we did a historically accurate presentation of a 3,000-year-old Babylonian menu. And I rented out a restaurant, and I hired a guy who is both brilliant with history and cooking. And he sat down and he researched all these recipes, and we sourced authentic ingredients, the same ingredients that they would have used in Babylon to make these, you know, these recipes. And we did this Babylonian dinner, and it was a huge hit. And, you know, we sold it out. We did a second presentation of it. And it was amazing. And that's something that in your head you think, boy, that sounds really cool. And then once you start putting money into it and you're going, oh my God, are other people going to think this is cool, or are they going to just think this is weird? You know? So that's always, you know, that's always something that runs through your mind is, are other people going to be into it? But
well, I think we're pretty much all set here. So for anybody, give a plug to your website or anything about the Dracula?
Sure. I mean, Dracula's Ball is 2 or 3 times a year. We always have one on Halloween or within a day or two of Halloween. Our next one's April 14th, but as I said, it's very sold out. It's our 20th anniversary event. But if you want to keep abreast of what we're doing and see when the next events are, the website is draculasball.com. There's no apostrophe between the A and the S in Dracula's. It's just all one word, draculasball.com. And you can go there, and there's always going to be info up on what the next event is going to be. And check it out. It's fun, very laid back crowd. People are friendly and welcoming, and you might enjoy yourself.